The black panther opened its jaws wide and lunged toward the little boy. But it was actually to save his life. Because just below them, a massive python had been eyeing the boy for a long time. Only by getting him to a safe place could he survive in this forest. But the solitary Bagheera clearly wasn't suited to care for him. So he placed the boy outside the wolves' den and quietly left. Yet for Mowgli's safety, he didn't go far. He hid in the nearby grass instead. Before long, a wolf pup was the first to discover him. Seeing Mowgli covered in blood, the little wolf looked worried. But his other siblings weren't nearly as kind. They all put on a fierce, intimidating look. The wolf father and mother, smelling the blood, soon hurried over as well. But when they realized it was a human child, they quickly hid their fangs. They couldn't understand how a human baby ended up here. Nisha licked some of the blood on him. She realized Mowgli didn't have a single wound. His innocent face instantly stirred Nisha's compassion. She wanted to take in this human child, but adopting him required the approval of the wolf leader, Exile. So the wolf pack held a tribe meeting. But when they heard the proposal to adopt a human boy, everyone thought it was a joke. Because in their minds, humans were dangerous beings. Even a baby could bring trouble. Just as Exile was hesitating, Bagheera arrived. He dragged in a deer as a gift for the wolves. He hoped this offering would earn Mowgli a place in the pack. But the final decision still rested with Exile. While he stared at Mowgli in indecision, an uninvited guest appeared. It was the infamous tiger Shere Khan, who had long terrorized the forest. Years ago, he'd been injured by a human, allowing Exile to rise as the forest's ruler. So Shere Khan bore hatred toward both humans and Exile. This time, he came to claim Mowgli. Because not long ago, he had killed Mowgli's parents, but had carelessly left the child behind. This allowed Bagheera to rescue him and bring him to the wolves. Seeing Shere Khan so arrogant, Exile finally lost his patience. He officially accepted Mowgli into the wolf pack, and he ordered the wolves to prepare for battle. Facing a surrounding pack and two fierce guardians at his sides, Shere Khan knew he was outnumbered. He could only leave after issuing a threat. That one day he would eat Mowgli. Then he turned and walked away. His words were a direct challenge to Aquila's authority. Exile declared that from this day forward, the pack would give everything to protect the human child. And under Aquila's protection, Mowgli gradually grew up in the forest. Bagheera, as his teacher, not only taught him how to hunt, but also taught him the laws of the jungle. Whenever they brought down prey, he told Mowgli to look into the animal's eyes, so its spirit wouldn't leave this world alone. He also had another teacher, the black bear Baloo. Baloo was extremely strict. When a scorpion crawled onto Mowgli's face and raised its stinger, Baloo forbade him to move, training his focus and courage. Baloo might seem harsh during lessons, but every time class ended, he smiled proudly watching Mowgli walk away. He truly cared for the student from the bottom of his heart. But because of his appearance, Mowgli was not welcomed by many wolves. Only Nisha and Exile, who raised him, and his wolf brother treated him like family. There was also a white wolf cub who shared a similar fate. Because of albinism, he was often bullied and rejected by the others. But unlike Mowgli, the gentle white wolf never fought back. Thankfully, with his company, Mowgli's childhood wasn't entirely lonely. They always played hide and seek together. And in this forest, their young hearts comforted each other. Mowgli thought his days would always stay this peaceful. But one day, while swimming, he suddenly spotted the tiger Shere Khan, who hadn't appeared for a long time. The tiger simply licked the water, and blood spread from his mouth. Clearly, he had just hunted another creature. Mowgli was startled, but after holding his breath too long, he accidentally released a stream of bubbles. That instantly caught Shere Khan's attention. Just as Mowgli was about to run out of breath, Shere Khan turned away. Once ashore, Mowgli sprinted for his life, but a roar erupted behind him. Shere Khan had indeed been lying in wait. Panicking, Mowgli didn't watch where he was going, and he fell straight into a human trap. His screams echoed through the entire forest. Bagheera, nearby, heard it immediately. He rushed over at once. Thankfully, Mowgli wasn't seriously hurt, but Shere Khan was lingering outside the pit. If Mowgli climbed out, he'd be caught instantly. Just when Mowgli didn't know what to do, heavy footsteps sounded above him. He climbed up and frowned at the sight before him. It was the forest guardian, the elephant Vihan. Vihan's body was covered in thick moss, and his broken tusk was impossible to ignore. It looked painfully tragic. Vihan asked for nothing in return and walked away. Mowgli had no time to waste. He followed Bagheera and quickly escaped. When all of this was over, Bagheera felt the jungle was no longer suitable for Mowgli. He believed Mowgli should return to the human village, because Shere Khan feared the fire humans controlled, and only there could Mowgli truly be protected. However, Mowgli had long regarded the jungle as his home, and refused to leave no matter what. Helpless, Bagheera had no choice but to make a deal with him. If he took first place in the next wolf race, he could stay. The so-called race was a competition where all the young wolves ran together, while a hunter interfered along the way. Whoever came in first would earn the right to become the future wolf leader. But no matter how hard he trained, human hands could never match a wolf's natural speed. So Mowgli was always half a step slower than the others. He could only practice over and over after lessons, finding new ways to make use of his hands. Only Baloo, who trained with him, knew how hard he worked. Finally, the day of the race arrived. This time Bagheera would be acting as the hunter. Staring into his cold eyes, Mowgli trembled from head to toe. He knew this race would not be easy. With Akela's command, all the young wolves dashed forward. The weakest, the white wolf brother, was caught first. Bagheera then lunged straight at Mowgli, as if he saw no one else. When their eyes met, Mowgli clearly saw a hint of deadly intent in Bagheera's gaze. Panicking, he scrambled upward into the trees. Bagheera closed in bit by bit. Thankfully, reeling on his smaller build, Mowgli slipped through a narrow gap and escaped. He swung across on a vine to the other side. Then Mowgli took a leap of faith and jumped off the cliff. Fortunately, he managed to grab a branch and slid down the trunk. Soon, he actually caught up with the wolf pack. Seeing Mowgli sprint in first, Baloo's face was filled with disbelief. But right when Mowgli was about to cross the finish line, Bagheera suddenly burst out. Mowgli fell right before the line. Listening to Bagheera roaring at him without mercy, Mowgli's eyes filled with fear and frustration. It was obvious to everyone that Bagheera had targeted him. Holding back tears, Mowgli cried to Baloo in grievance. Bagheera too looked helpless. But for Mowgli's safety, he had no choice but to play the villain. The loss was already a fact. Even as the judge, Baloo could not change the outcome. In the end, Mowgli left in tears. Little did he know, after he left, the two teachers ended up fighting fiercely. Baloo knew how hard Mowgli had worked for this race, but Bagheera also had reasons he could not ignore. The defeated Mowgli Saturday alone by the river in despair. At that moment, his friend, the white wolf brother, came to comfort him, but his always cheerful attitude only annoyed Mowgli in that moment. Not only did Mowgli reject his comfort, he exploded at the white wolf, calling him a freak. It turned out even his only friend saw him that way. The white wolf brother, who always smiled even when bullied, and had never cried once, now shed a single tear. Then he left quietly. When Mowgli realized he had spoken out of anger, the white wolf brother was already gone. Mowgli regretted every hurtful word. Meanwhile, during a hunt, Akela slipped. Not only did he miss his prey, he fell hard in front of the entire pack. Instantly, the wolves cast doubtful glances at him. When Akela returned to the pack, he discovered that Shere Khan had claimed his territory, bringing a human livestock animal with him to provoke and manipulate the wolves. Because Akela had failed during the hunt, wolf law dictated that the leader must step down. It was obvious Shere Khan was stirring up trouble. The wolves bared their teeth and attacked Akela. Mowgli rushed over at that moment. Seeing wolves fighting one another, he had no idea what was happening. He tried to intervene, but Baloo stopped him. Baloo told him this was the law. Akela could easily take on the young wolves, but their attacks from all sides overwhelmed him. Then Mowgli finally noticed Shere Khan among them. He understood everything instantly. He sprinted down the mountain. Because Bagheera had told him Shere Khan feared fire, Mowgli ran to the human village and borrowed a burning torch. With the torch in hand, Mowgli returned to the wolves. He waved it to scatter the wolves attacking Akela, then moved towards Shere Khan. As expected, Shere Khan recoiled in fear, and eventually had no choice but to retreat. Mowgli approached Akela, just about to ask if he was alright, but unexpectedly Akela ordered him to leave. Akela blamed him for using a human weapon against the wolves, bringing shame to the entire pack. At that moment, heavy rain poured from the sky. It washed away Mowgli's fiery determination, but not the torch still burning in his hand, a symbol of the eternal divide between humans and animals. Not even Nisha tried to stop him. Bagheera and Baloo stepped back as well. Seeing this, Mowgli fell into complete despair. He ran down the mountain in anguish. To prove he was a wolf, Mowgli stormed into the human village, waving the torch at the people, but the next second, the hunter John knocked him unconscious. When he woke up again, he had already been locked in an iron cage by the villagers. No matter what he tried, there was no way out. Before long, John brought over a generous meal. Mowgli sniffed it while lying on the ground, then bit into it like a wolf. But the next second, he flipped the plate over, because he had never eaten food cooked by humans. The salty taste made him sneeze non-stop. Seeing this, John sighed helplessly and had no choice but to leave. That night, Bagheera came secretly because he was worried about Mowgli. Mowgli thought he had come to rescue him, but Bagheera told him instead to stay here, because Shere Khan had already taken over the jungle, and going back now would only lead to one outcome. No matter how Mowgli begged, Bagheera remained unmoved and left with a heavy heart. When he woke up the next morning, he found the cage had already been opened. Mowgli was surprised, then carefully crawled out. The moment he stepped outside, he saw John preparing to butcher a wild boar. Starving, Mowgli bit directly into the raw meat. John quickly stopped him, and seeing how lost Mowgli looked, he handed him a knife. He then taught Mowgli how to cut meat like a human. Mowgli learned fast, and immediately sliced off a piece to eat. Soon after, a woman from the village bathed Mowgli and wiped the dirt from his face. When Mowgli stepped out, the villagers were captivated by his delicate features. Mowgli curiously looked around, realizing that life here didn't seem so bad. Everyone was warm and welcoming, and before long, he blended in. Mowgli's extraordinary talents even startled John, who decided on the spot to take him in as his son. Little by little, Mowgli got used to life there. One day, his wolf brother came to ask him to return to the jungle and help the pack resist Shere Khan's oppression, but Mowgli refused without hesitation, because he believed those who abandoned him didn't deserve forgiveness. He thought he would live happily here forever, until the tribe held a feast that night. John got completely drunk at the celebration, and Mowgli curiously entered his room. There, he discovered the darker side of humans. The table was filled with preserved animal specimens, damaged deer heads, and monkeys soaked in jars. Mowgli was stunned speechless, but what he saw next shattered him completely. It was his former best friend, his white wolf brother. John walked in just then, and proudly told Mowgli it was his favorite trophy. Completely unaware of Mowgli's devastated expression, tears welled in Mowgli's eyes, and once John walked away, he finally broke down in silent grief. If he hadn't spoken harshly that day, his wolf brother wouldn't have left alone, and wouldn't have been turned into a specimen to satisfy human vanity. But now it was too late for anything. It was he who caused his closest friend's death. Mowgli sat by the river all night. Suddenly, everything became clear to him. Compared to animals, the false mask humans wear was far more frightening. So he decided to return to the jungle, but before leaving, he had to avenge his white wolf brother. Mowgli drew his knife, ready to strike John. But then he noticed the scar on John's waist. It was left by Shere Khan. At that moment, a bold plan formed in his mind. Mowgli then noticed the ivory on the side, knowing it belonged to Vihan. So he stole the ivory and returned it to its owner, Vihan. He then formed an agreement with Vihan. If Vihan helped him eliminate Shere Khan, he would help him take revenge on John. Mowgli went to the place where Shere Khan often appeared and shouted his name loudly. His voice echoed through every corner of the jungle. The fierce tiger finally arrived. Seeing Mowgli holding only a small knife, Shere Khan found it amusing. But at that moment, Mowgli gave the signal. Vihan and the elephant herd charged out from the grass. Shere Khan realized too late that he had been tricked, and there was no chance to escape. He was surrounded by the elephants. Mowgli seized the moment, threw his knife, and struck Shere Khan, then leapt onto his back to fight him up close. Knowing he was outnumbered, Shere Khan fled. Hearing the commotion, John arrived with a gun and aimed at Shere Khan, but he accidentally shot Mowgli instead. Seeing Mowgli wounded, Shere Khan approached him with a menacing glare. John aimed again, but didn't notice Vihan approaching from behind. When Mowgli got up, He realized Akela had taken the bullet for him. At that moment, Bagheera and Baloo also arrived. Knowing he couldn't win, Shere Khan left. Mowgli rushed to Akela, but his injuries were too severe. He lay on the ground, barely breathing. In his final moments, he felt remorse for his past actions and hoped Mowgli would lead the wolf pack forward. As Mowgli watched Akela take his last breath, he slowly rose to his feet. He picked up the knife, glanced at the watching villagers, and walked into the jungle without hesitation. Mowgli then found the gravely injured Shere Khan. He raised his knife to finish him, but Shere Khan still tried to resist. Mowgli dodged, and with a swift strike, ended the tiger once and for all. Just as Bagheera taught him, he stared into Shere Khan's eyes, until the last trace of life faded. From that day on, Mowgli seemed to have suddenly grown up. He raised the banner and became the new leader of the wolves. But no one saw the grief hidden behind his lonely silhouette. Perhaps this is the price of growing up.